Well, welcome to Order Your Steps. We hope that we will inspire, encourage, and empower primarily women, but we don't exclude the men, with our personal experiences and God's Word so that we are empowered to be what the Lord has created us to be. And I am super excited to have Minister Kari Heron. Did I say that right?
Kari Heron.
Heron. Okay. Kari Heron with us on today, and we're just gonna talk. She has a bio that's, oh my goodness. So I'm just gonna let her share a little bit about herself. We welcome you to Order Your Steps and just tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks for having me on your show, and I'm delighted to be here. So, yeah, I am a speaker, a media content queen, and I joke about that, and a consultant to leaders and to businesses as well as governments. My core background is in media and communication, and I have literally created a business that meets ministry. And what I do is I feed people, I free people, and I do that by helping them to build healthier and wealthier relationships with themselves and others, essentially.
Excellent. Now you got to tell me how the cooking got started. I started to watch your videos and it's like, oh my goodness. She definitely feeds and frees, but the feeding is just an interesting phenomenon. So how did that get started?
Well, I've always been interested in food, really. And I remember as a young child reading my stepmother's cookbooks. I ran out of things to read. And then the cookbooks were the only thing, because I was a real prolific reader then. And so after reading everything, including all of the novels for older people that I oftentimes didn't even understand because I just was such a voracious reader, I got to the cookbooks. And so I had a passion for cookbooks. And I really like cookbooks that actually had pictures because the pictures themselves also told a story. So I always had a thing for cooking, and I had this dream of being able to cook all sorts of fancy things at some point in my life. Eventually, I married a chef. And yeah, that part you probably didn't know as
No, I
well,
didn't.
right? Yeah. So the story involves. And I started a food blog in Dubai when I moved there because I got married in Dubai. I started there a food blog, which was a merger of all of our skills. We also had the passion of food together. And because of my media and marketing communication, I decided to merge all our interests and skills into the platform that is Chef and Steward that I started 13 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And I was doing the weather on national TV when I was 19 years old. I'm not a meteorologist, but if you understand a subject matter, immerse yourself, and you're able to communicate that effectively, then that's what good communication is. I speak the language of food. I think it's a universal language. It is a language that has been able to give me community in foreign places, having lived all over the world. And especially in a place like Dubai, where there's so many people from so many different places and the cultures are clashing. Sometimes you're in a room and there are like 15 languages being spoken simultaneously. And I'm like, okay, and it's like, what's going on here? It's like my ears are hurting. Um, Food was a common language. And so when I could not find, because I went to Dubai right when the recession hit Dubai, couldn't find work. So I decided to create my own with the blog. The blog was the easiest point of entry. And so I've always been entrepreneurial. And we just built up from there. So Chef and Steward came about as of that. And then a few years ago, right before the pandemic, I decided to start. It was always a part of the plan because again, it was a business that had multiple facets, and I just built at it from different perspectives. So right before the pandemic, I started to do in-person experiences. And yes, so I have a five-star experience that I currently do where it comes on to food. And one of the good things about that, it continues to bring me community because I have a son, one child, and I'm now divorced. But because of the experience that we have, we're now able to have a big family once or twice a week as we have
Oh,
these
wow.
experiences together. And I have the most amazing clients from all over the world. Yeah, it's just an amazing testimony altogether.
Oh my gosh, that is absolutely extraordinary. Oh wow. Okay, so that's kind of how the food um, kind of cultivated everything that you do. So yes, your food has become your universal language for someone that's traveled the entire world. So what is that like to just travel all over the world? I mean, what is that experience? I mean, people say, "Oh, I would love to do that," but what is the real experience of traveling all over the world?
I haven't traveled all over the world. I feel like I've lived in multiple places, but I haven't quite done all the traveling that's in my system.
Okay.
And I think it's a little bit different from just being a short-term traveler. I've lived in places, and so it's given me a protracted perspective of different cultures in a different way than you would have if you had just been there for a weekend or a week or 2 weeks on vacation. So I've been immersed in local cultures and I've been forced to live in places where I don't necessarily identify with people who are around me, and also just work with people who do things differently. I find that even people's logic will change according to culture. Logic is not as universal as we think it is in many ways. There are patterns of thinking and deductions that people make
Hmm.
culturally that are separate from group to group. And so, like when you see a group of people over here and they look at the same problem, they'll be thinking, ah, and another will be like, ah, so that's the
Yes.
interesting part. The hardest thing for me though is learning to it has grounded me spiritually because then I had to find an internal reference and anchor even while things were going on around me. And so I believe that God's hand has been in it. I was an only
Yes.
child. Funny enough, my
Oh.
mother used to tell me when I was growing up as a young girl in Jamaica, she said, you love too much friend. Friend, 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 friend. You love your friends too much. She said, and she said this thing into me, you one born, it's you one born. Which that means you were born alone. So
Oh.
be comfortable with your own company because you are enough on your own. You weren't born in the face of all of this company. And I realized just now, having mentioned that, I don't know where that came from, but that reference actually was a good bit of guidance because I've had to learn to find that internal reference, that spiritual reference that anchors me in spite of the fact that I can't be around family when I want to be around family all the time. I don't have the resources readily available to me externally, so I have to find them internally.
That is very interesting. That is so interesting. So let's talk a little bit about Thrive with Kari. And I was very fascinated by your latest podcast. You know, when you talk about that being born alone, and yet the idea of being self-abandoned. Talk to us about that.
Well, I think self abandonment is something that's quite interesting. Many of us are nurtured, especially I think as women, even because we are carers, we are givers. We will give the backs, the shirts of our backs and our backs as well. you know,
Literally.
literally, like come on my back, I'll carry you if you can't walk. And but that sometimes comes at a price. Oftentimes it does. And so I had to I the premise of that, by the way, which has been the single most successful episode since I've done had more views on that one in the last 2 days since it was released than I did on episode one, which was the
Wow.
second most viewed one. Yes. So it really hit
Interesting.
a nerve. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people identified with that because we are not really taught why self care is important. We're not even taught to recognize when we cross the line because there is healthy service to others. That's
Mm-hmm.
the nature of what we're supposed to do. We're here in service to our brothers and our sisters, right? To God's children. But he did say, love your neighbor. as yourself. And so
Mm-hmm.
the reference is always to self. How am I nurturing self and making certain that that I'm staying honest and respectful to my core in this space, even when things may appear like resources, time, and all of those things to be scarce, appear to be scarce. So when you have limited resources, limited time, limited finances, all of those things, how do I still honor myself in the process of serving others?
It's interesting when you start to talk about self care, because I don't think we totally understand what that is all about. But I think the key is about timing. And in the last few podcasts that I did, the Lord had me kind of focusing on divine timing, because we are here to serve and to live out our calling, but it requires that we prioritize our time. And that priority comes with understanding what we're called to do, right? So, in that, you have to realize that it's not like your time isn't your own, but you have to understand what's most important. And so, when you look inside of the self care part of it and the service part of it, and knowing that everything is within God's timing, although He does not operate in time, how does that pull together for you? Because I know you're busy. I know that I assume that might be a dangerous assumption on my part, but I would assume that there are probably hectic times in your life. So how do you balance the the timing?
Well, I feel like that's one of the things that I've been really getting and delving into deeper. And it's because especially now when things are the resources are limited, the time is limited. I mean, as a divorced mother with a young child, my finances are also having, a different kind of
Yeah.
reality. So how do you balance what it is that you want to do or all the things, the deposits that need to be made with the reality of the income coming in, if you're looking at it like a bank
Right.
account? And how do you, even in what appears, I put appears a lot because it is an appearance, what appears to be lack, what appears to be less, what appears to be
Yes.
scarcity, how do you find expansion in the areas where you feel limited? And I believe that it's really a mindset issue.
Mm-hmm.
At the core, it is a mindset issue because there's love for self that is healthy and there's love for self that's perverted.
Mm-hmm.
There's care,
Exactly.
there's love and care for others that's healthy, and there's care for others that's also perverted. So the key really is to find the balance because, and when I say balance, we're not ever going to get things perfect all the time.
Right. Right.
But there has to be like a certain awareness, a certain understanding that, hey, you know what? I'm feeling tired right now. I need to rest. And that's okay. It's okay to take a nap. It's okay to go for a walk. It's okay to say, you know what happened? I'm going to have to postpone this meeting because I'm not quite there today. Or I feel like I'm prepared because I've got this available and so on. Or you just say to somebody, hey, you know what happened? Could we do this tomorrow? Or thank you for the offer, but I'm
Mm,
sorry, I won't be able to take you up on that. It sometimes means that we're not going to be available to people in the ways that they have become accustomed to us.
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Us giving ourselves away for all the time, and sometimes, even in terms of prices as well. You have to adjust your prices as an entrepreneur to be reflective of real value that you are giving. And so if you're giving more value and not getting the
Mm-hmm.
commensurate thing, then it's gonna pull on you way more rather than you're gonna be energized. So you won't have the capacity to serve people well if you are working from that deficit. So how do you have a greater sense of abundance in the face of adversity so that you can see the opportunity rather than operate from a space of I can't. Because the truth is that you can't help anybody else unless you help yourself. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
you are operating out of a broken consciousness, brokenness, not being full and aware of yourself. And then you're working to please others and giving with expectation, because even that's not good, eh?
Right. That's right.
If I love you, if I serve you, I should be serving you because I'm serving and I'm loving you, because that's it. Well,
That's it.
it's in giving that I receive. And the
Exactly.
moment that I'm expecting you to do something back for me in terms of this, then that means that it didn't come from a right place. And that's also why we
Ex-
get disappointed, because
hmm
people don't do for us what we would do for them. But the truth is, what you're really doing for others is what you really want to be done for you. So why don't you do it for yourself, boo?
Yeah.
Do it for yourself.
Absolutely.
And don't get disappointed and don't hold people up for them not doing
Um,
what you would have wanted. So do it for you. And again, it is not a perverted concept of, selfishness. No, it is understanding self, understanding that we are the temple of the living God, and that we are sacred, and that we're holy, and that we need to ascribe all of the good things to us that we would want others to. And if we don't do it for ourselves, then we inherently also teach others to devalue us by having laid the foundation and given the example of how we devalue our own selves.
wow. You said a lot there, and that is so very true because many times we take the idea of faith and service to the point where that doesn't mean saying yes to everything. I believe I heard someone say sometimes we take on something or responsibility which kind of takes away from the person being able to do things on their own because they're so dependent on us saying yes that we interfere with what God has purposed for them to learn and grow, and we end up being in the way in the name of service. And so that says so much. And
And making idols out of our own service in the process. Because then we become gods. Because if we didn't do it for you, then it couldn't happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, how perverted and thwarted is that thinking? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Oh my God, that is so very true. There was something else that you brought up. It'll come back to me after a while, but right now it escapes me. But it is managing our priorities and really kind of really seeking the Holy Spirit in His guidance and direction in just a better understanding what you should and should not do. And in many cases, we'll get prompted and it's like, but I know you want me to do that. And it's like, not necessarily so. Um, and the other thing that you mentioned that just came back is the mindset of scarcity. Because many times we're looking, oh my gosh, like just the thought of it made me think about it again. The mindset of scarcity has us thinking that we want or need more when we forget that the Lord is sustaining what we already have. So He's like stretching our current resource in a way that we don't really conceptualize because we're thinking we have to have more versus understanding that, you know, that money lasted a whole lot longer than I thought it would. I always tell people God's math just doesn't add up sometimes. I wasn't supposed to have enough, to pay all that. Why is there money left over? I didn't get technically any more, but He sustained what we have, and I think that mindset is crucial in really being able to realize what like the scenario. So what's in your hand? What do you already have in the house? Versus you want me to give you more, and that's not necessarily so. So
I used to, when I deal with a lot with leaders as well, and leaders are already very high functioning, very high achieving. And leaders also tend to put themselves last in many ways. And so
mm-hmm.
especially women who are leaders. because that's just the nature of the game. That's also why women also make better leaders, because we tend to serve the team better. But we also need to serve ourselves a little bit better in the process. And one of the things that we have to get into the habit of doing is really just paying attention to listen, to to pause a little bit and to recognize that when you're a high achiever, you it's kind of, you kind of get like really into the whole moving, running, and how you just keep on going, right? You just go going like an engine. But there's a scripture that says, don't think that in your cleverness that you are the one that's creating all of this. Yeah, don't. Where
Yeah.
it's yourself, and you are thinking that in your cleverness, you're the ones that's going to create all of these things. And so that's why I say it's idolatry. Because there's one thing to steward the gifts that you already have. But then there's another thing to recognize that even with the gifts that I already have, there's space in here to labor to enter into God's rest. And in that place of rest, we can allow Him to be the multiplier of the thing that we have invested. That's called the
Yes.
works that we have applied to faith, and say, yes, God said move. God said move, I moved. But now it's time to rest. When Jesus was tired, what did He do? He
Yeah.
rested. Jesus
Yes.
rested. We don't have to kill ourselves to save anybody, and certainly not to save ourselves. Jesus rested. We can rest. And so if He rested, then we can rest. And that gives Him space to move, because guess what? Because that creates a gap. And God loves gaps. God loves gaps, because that means that you're not moving. So that means that He's free to move, because He doesn't like anybody to get His glory. So
Amen.
when we're quiet, when we're resting, He's like, hey, guess what? Guess what, Candy? Guess what, Carrie? You remember that prayer you prayed? Well, do you remember when I
Mm-hmm.
said immeasurably more than you could ever think? Well, here's your exceedingly abundantly more. Yeah, because I'm the one who's given you the power to gain wealth, not you, not your thinking. Yes, you have planted. Yes, you have watered diligently. So, no, no, the Bible says also the diligent person, what is his mind is always stayed on plenteousness. So there is no lack, because guess what? If I don't see it, that means that it is there somewhere. I just haven't opened my eyes yet, because He don't lie. So it's calling us into it's like we have to get to a state where we have, like, I call it crazy old woman faith. Like, you ever heard of these old women who just, like, literally have this faith to believe some weird things? You're like, where did that come from? But that's exactly what we need to have, to
Yes.
understand that the gap, the bigger the gap, the greater the God.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
why are we trying to fill His gap? And we of course we're gonna abandon ourselves in the process, because we're overdoing, we're overexpending, we are not aligning ourselves in taking care of ourselves and taking care of our environment. We're talking even about, like, the work that you do in your profession, order your steps as well and stuff like that. This is all taking care of self.
Yeah.
And who told us that taking care of ourselves is not worthy or is not good? Or whoever said that?
Yeah.
Whoever said
Yeah.
that we should not eat well, we should not feed ourselves well, we should not spend money looking well, feeling well, doing nice skincare?
Wow.
Look at your skin, look at your hair. Like, who says that we should not adorn ourselves that way?
Wow.
Again, there's righteous and there is perverted.
Yes.
But there
Yes.
is a place for us to take care of ourselves, to honor ourselves in the process. And when we rest, we allow space for God to move. And it's just amazing, because we could never do, in all the work that we do, we could never accomplish what He can do from rest.
Never. Never.
Never,
Never. Ever.
never, never, absolutely not. And so
Never.
it's a lesson. it's a lesson that I feel is very important, especially now, especially when reality, or quote unquote reality, things that we see with our physical eyes are saying, but this is what is. We have to be really, really rooted and grounded in what God has said,
Yes.
so that we can say, hold on a second, I see what these things are telling me, these
Mm-hmm.
orbital things here, but I know what this is telling me.
Exactly.
And this, he is more real than these two things. And
Absolutely.
so I will not be distracted by what I hear or by what I see or even by what I feel, but I will be fixated and fixed and focused on what he has spoken.
Absolutely. Especially in this day and time. It's very easy to, God hasn't gone anywhere. He's not, he is sovereign. And so we have to understand it's not like things that are catching him by surprise. We just have to keep it in perspective and know what God has said. We know what we see. We know this world is in chaos, but we also know what God said. And that's all. And that's it. And that's all. I mean, there's no but, there's no maybe. That is it, and that's all. We know what he said. But as we, I don't want to take a lot of your time, but as we begin to wrap up, one of the more recent, and I know you kind of alluded to it um, earlier to a certain degree. One of my more recent podcasts was about reflection and really looking back over with the fact that this is April already, half over already, and we're, into the second quarter of 2024. As you reflect, let's say, on the last 3 months, what kind of stands out in just what you've experienced, and then once you reflect, I'm going to ask you kind of what are your projects that are coming up, and so where you're headed. It's like where have you been, and now where are you going? As when we take a stop, when we take a pause, and say, okay, we're 4 months in, where are we?
Yeah, so since I got ordained in the States in Delaware in December, I got a prophetic word from a few people who were there in my ordination about my podcast. And the podcast, I started the first season in 2019, and it was a radio show. I did 18 hours of live radio. And
Wow.
since then, I wanted to get funding for it because it's a lot of work, as you know, Candy. And I wanted the production to be elevated and stuff. And so last year I was actually successful in getting a signed contract for 150,000 US dollars to fund
Wow.
this thing. And I was excited because finally, I was getting the finances behind the vision, because Thrive with Kari was given to me. It's based on Isaiah 35, which actually causes it talks about the desert blooming.
Mm,
And so it's a prophetic podcast to start with. And so I approach things in different ways, and it's teaching, it's healing, this deliverance, it's a lot of stuff that happens all at the same time. People don't even know what's happening on,
right,
they just,
exactly.
but it's all exciting things. Anyway, I was waiting for the funding, didn't come through, and I had to cancel that. I actually wrote them and released them from the contract because they were Christians as well.
Hmm.
But the contract would have tied me up long term, and I felt that the reason why God didn't allow that to really go through was that for that reason it would
Hmm.
not have been good for me long term. And so I also reached out for sponsors, and two different ways it didn't happen. And when I got the prophetic word about the podcast, which these people have no idea who I am and everything, I was like, okay, God. The first season, I said I did it on my own. This time, I said we're gonna do it. He's gonna be the one to do it. So I did The last time I did it, it was actually not video. This time it's a video podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's much more to it. I was doing it at the radio station, so I didn't need any other equipment other than my computer. Now I'm shooting in my own home studio and I'm doing everything on my own for the second season. I just published season 2, episode 9. So I have one
Wow.
more episode in season 2. And we're also going to be on air in television in
Oh
a
my
review.
gosh.
Yeah. And so that's going to be our first airing. And, we're talking about distribution elsewhere and so on and so forth. But television really is my baby. All of the things that I do are extensions of myself. I consider myself a polymath. I'm talented in many different ways. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
speak that from a place of conceit. I speak that as
Right.
from a place of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That God has gifted me in multiple ways, especially even in the creative arts. And because of the way that I see things, I see how just looking at things differently, I can still make connections. And so, even in terms of how I approach my clients as well, because of how I see things and the multiple areas and disciplines that I've actually spent time with working on,
Mm-hmm.
um, I bring a different perspective than typical person who's just been in one doing one thing in one area. And so going forward, I do feel that the media arm is coming back more prominently. I have been very resourceful because I've lived in different countries and I've adapted to different places and the
Mm-hmm.
different needs and the things that God life has thrown me. I've just been, you know, being
Mm-hmm.
agile and flexible.
Yes.
But I believe that God is taking me to a place where the core skills that He's deposited in me will be able to shine and have the freedom to roam and to
Yeah.
reach people in those ways, predominantly in media and also in helping leaders and executives really polish and hone because there are lots of skills that are needed for what's coming and we just have to be prepared.
Amen. That's fascinating. So you kind of answered the where you're going. Um, is there anything in particular that you would like to share with my Order Your Steps audience as you kind of leave them with things to think about as they move forward?
When I spoke to you first, Candy, and I saw all the things that you were doing, and I thought, this is a woman who gets it. Because and when I asked you, I was like, who does your editing? Who does this? And you're like, I do. I'm like, whoa. Because I think that the work that you're doing is really important because technology keeps on changing and you are willing to adjust with the times and with the seasons. And that keeps you young, youthful, relevant in every season. And the truth is, I think that there are lots of women, even men as well, who feel, oh, I'm over 40 or
Yeah.
so on. These young people are the ones that are on social media. This thing is, I don't understand. It's not for me. No, your voice is valid. Your experiences are valid. Your education is valid. Your expertise is valid. And there are many people who do not have righteous, reasonable counsel. There's a lot of stupid all
Yeah.
over the internet. A lot of stupid. A whole lot of stupid. And if we who actually have something meaningful to say remain closed mouthed, then we're just amplifying
Yeah.
the stupidity. So maybe we should speak up things that make sense and diminish the stupidity in the marketplace. Like, yeah, show up, find your audience. Even if your audience is an audience of one, there are
Yes.
people who you are meant to reach. And I think I love you. I love the name of your brand, Order Your Steps. I love what you stand for. And I like the step that order in terms of, the order in the home, the order in the office, the order in the mind, the order in the spirit, all of those things. And even in terms of your life coaching as well. And I just feel that investing in mentorship, investing in help, that's also part of the
Yeah.
care. It's also part of disabling self abandonment. Who says that
Wow.
that I Yes, I would like all of these things. Like even things like getting somebody to come and help you to do certain things. Oh yes, I have a right to an organized home or a system, but I've never been taught how to do it. I've never been taught a system, but I can hire Candy as a coach. I can hire Candy to come in and help me to create a system. And then maybe I can even find out, Candy, is there any way, any service that you provide where we can do an audit, like maybe every 3 months or something? So it's not only just one off, but we can have an ongoing thing and then we can go into deeper things. We should give ourselves permission to seek help, to get help, to grow, to expand, so that we are better able to do this life, because life is hard. And spending all the money on things like brands that have nothing to do with our bottom line, that are not going to help. Nothing wrong with brands, but honey, the Louis Vuitton is really not going to tidy up your closet. The Louis Vuitton is really not going to tidy up the turmoil that's inside of you. The
Wow.
Vuitton is not going to bring you the sense of fulfillment that you think it's going to, because it's just an external thing. It's not, the reason why you're buying it is it's a cover.
Oh.
So let's take that and work inwardly. The work appears to be harder than it really is, because that's how the enemy likes to disguise the problem. It's like the Wizard and the Wizard of Oz, right? Where you think that this thing is big and grand. When you draw the curtain, it's just this
Yeah.
itsy bitsy thing. But the enemy tries to magnify the
Wow.
drama of saying, dealing with the inner issues, the inner places that need to be healed, the inner stuff that needs to be cleared out and to build back up. That's gonna be hard. No, it's actually harder to avoid it. The cost of avoidance is greater,
Mm.
because what happens is that we're pretty much piling on makeup and perfume on nastiness. It might work in a virtual setting, but the moment somebody walks in the same room as you, they'll know that you haven't brushed your teeth in 5 weeks, haven't washed your face. It's just, no, it's cosmetic. Let's spend the time, the energy, the resources to get the help that we need in the places that we need. And also, let's not be up under relationships, whether it is even in the church, I go there,
Yes. Yes. Go there.
relationships even in marriage, I go there,
Mm-hmm.
relationships even with best friends, even with family, even with
Yes.
jobs,
Yes.
that diminish our human decency, that try to break us down, that try to tell us, that cut us down to size, that
Wow.
try to really mess up who we think we are. Let us spend the time to grow and to build ourselves so that we are able to identify what doesn't serve us, to be able to walk, make better choices, make better relationships, and just have a much more fulfilling and purposeful life. Because let me tell you something, for us to excel in any area, excellence means you're climbing. It's easier to climb when you're packing light.
Drop the mic.
You don't want 500 pounds. We're talking about, remember the back we're talking about from the beginning?
Yes.
We come back to the back
Yes.
again. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be carrying 500 pounds excess on our back as we are ascending up a ladder.
Oh my gosh.
Even just a step is going to be too hard when you're carrying all that extra weight. So, literally, and that's another reason as well that so many people are being exposed, even in ministry, in people who are in the entertainment industry, all sorts. Because if you ascend, we have a saying in Jamaica that says, the higher monkey climb, the
Mm-hmm.
more him expose. Which means that the higher the monkey goes, the more he's likely to be exposed. Because guess what? You're seeing all of the nether
Oh.
bits. You're seeing all of the nether bits. So it would be wise for us. As for people, we're talking about wanting to be successful, and this is my year, and we want to do all of these things, and we want to be big and grand, and the abundance, and the millions, and the billions. Can we clean out the closets, the internal closets, the physical closets, physically? There are people who are making millions of dollars and whose homes look like pigsties. That's not good because you're making the money. Even if you don't have the capacity to do it yourself, create the system. That
Yes.
is again a sense of self abandonment and neglect. What happens is we want to be able to make all of those work on the internal things so that when the success comes, there's no expose that's going to bring us down to size. So
Wow.
deal with those things, prepare yourself for the deluge of blessings that's going to come by using this time to invest in those things, the therapy, the counseling, the mentorship, the leadership, the systems in terms of admin that you provide as well. All of the things that are necessary to sustain success and to ascend even higher. We have to lighten the load so that we can travel light while we ascend. So I want to just encourage everyone, and it's not too late. Even if we've gotten it wrong for the first 65, 70 years, it's never too late. It's
It's
absolutely never
not.
too late to travel light at all. Like seriously, it's never too late. Like some of the things that we've held on to, the relationships, the toxic relationships that we've have held on to for dear life, because we just think that at least we know this devil. This devil
Mm.
we know. This devil we know. We don't know any other devil. So at least this is a devil I know. I know which side he wakes up on and which side he goes to. But I know this devil. I don't know the devil outside. No, you don't need to know no devil. Get rid of the devil. Get rid of the devil. It's time to be free. It's time to come into the fullness of freedom that Christ has set us free for. And I'm not saying that we're gonna be all into this some sort of big self-love thing where it's again perverted. No, I'm just saying, listen, take stock. Because as church people, as Christians especially, we tend to Christianize and we tend to real become religious about everything, but sometimes
Yes.
you have no earthly wisdom, the heaven, so heavenly minded, and no earthly good, no
That's right.
sense,
That's
no
right.
sense. We turn everything into something else. No, just eat properly. No, just go for a walk. No, just fast. No.
Wow.
So that's
Oh,
my soapbox, and I'll now take a
oh
seat.
my gosh, I'm glad you got on the soapbox because you said so many things that my listeners really need to hear. Oh my goodness, I am. Well, let me just say that I don't have to ask my audience if they have been blessed by our time together. This has been extraordinary. They've gotten a lot of knowledge, a lot of inspiration and encouragement, and just some common sense on how to live. And I will tell you, the Lord does not ask you how old you are when He has a purpose on your life. He does not. I am a living witness. Um, so no, it's His timing, not ours, and it's never too late. And I know that for sure. So Kari, I'm so appreciative that you took the time out to spend your time with me and my Order Your Steps audience. We're just so thankful and grateful that you stopped by. And to my Order Your Steps audience, we know that you've enjoyed yourself, and we would love for you to leave us a comment or two on any and everything that Kari has shared with us on today. If you haven't already, subscribe to Order Your Steps right now, aligning mind, space, soul, and spirit. And don't forget to check us out at Order Your Steps in Instagram for snippets of encouragement throughout the week. And Kari, before we leave, I apologize for overlooking the fact that you could share how people could get in contact with you as well. And we will definitely leave all your contact and your bio in the podcast description. But you want to just tell people where they can find you and the services that you could offer to them. as
Sure.
they're
I
climbing that ladder?
So right now, I actually have a special on for to work with persons who want to increase and rebrand their executive personal branding, which allows you to position yourself for greater opportunities, for greater impact, as well as for increase in all areas. Sometimes we have a lot of things going on, but we haven't quite gotten the finesse, the packaging that needs to happen so that we're able to take advantage of that. And I see that there's so much space. I told you I was 3 weeks in Maryland recently,
Uh-huh.
and there's just so much opportunities there, and I feel like there are ways for us to position ourselves better. And I'm just happy to take on anybody on board who is willing to do that. I have a special on for 12 people to work together for 4 weeks, right? And so this is you can find me at kariheron.com. That's also part of the things that I train in terms of how it is that you're available elsewhere. And I'm at Chef and Steward everywhere. So it's Chef and Steward on Instagram as well as on TikTok. You can send me DMs. And my website is kariheron.com. KARIHERON.com. My name.com.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, again, I'm just speechless. This has been absolutely extraordinary. I couldn't have asked for anything more. And we'll look forward to hearing from you in the future. Make sure you all subscribe to everything that she's mentioned to you. Check out her website. And I would take advantage of that special too if I were you all. So listen, have an amazing week. And we look forward to seeing you right here at Order Your Steps next time. Take care and bye bye for now.